Hello, greetings, and salutations. Welcome aboard my podcast. I am Jason with Jay's Paradise Travel, and I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. On a previous episode, I had done my experience with the Purdue Boilermakers, and within that trip that I went on to see Purdue, it was two games that I was able to see in this one trip. One was the Purdue Boilermakers, and then the following day was the Indiana Hoosiers. And that's what this episode is going to be about, my experience with the Indiana Hoosiers. Before I get into all of that, a little housekeeping to do. First off, if you'd like to reach out to me and contact me about a cruise or to go to see a game or some other vacation, there's plenty of ways to do it. One of the ways is you can email me. My email is j.paradise.travels@gmail.com. That is one way you can contact me. There's also a couple ways that you can contact me through social media. Both of them are Jay's Paradise Travels, no apostrophe in there, just Jays. Jay's Paradise Travels, and you could either look that up on Instagram or Facebook, and you can reach out to me in that way as well. Love to hear from you. Love to be able to help you go on a trip. All right, with that set aside now, let's move into my experience with the Indiana Hoosiers. Again, this was picking up after the day after we had seen the Purdue Boilermakers the night before. And just to, in case you didn't listen to that episode or just don't even know about it. So on this trip, it was just me and my dad. We drove down and visited a friend of mine out in Indianapolis. Him and his wife live out there, someone I had met years ago. And even went and saw a game with him before. I'd seen the Indiana Pacers with him and his wife, which I'll discuss in another episode another time. But anyways, for this particular trip. Me and my dad, we drove out there. Now from Detroit to Indiana, not too far. I think it takes us anywhere between 4 or 5 hours roughly to get to Indianapolis. Definitely can be done in a day. And the day that we got there, we saw the Purdue Boilermakers. It was a night game, and we came home, went to bed, whatever. The following day, so that was actually a Thursday. Friday, we woke up, and that was the day that we were seeing the Indiana Hoosiers. Which also was a little bit later on in the day. So we didn't, it wasn't like we got up and immediately got ready and went to a football game because it wasn't Saturday. Saturday, a lot of times, noon games. That's what you do. You get up, you get ready, you make it to the game. This one was in the evening time, so didn't have to do that. We ended up hanging out with each other in the house and got to visit with our friends, which was nice. But then also we went out to Indianapolis. Now this isn't a podcast that's talking about Indianapolis necessarily, but I will reference it because it was part of my experience with the Indiana Hoosiers and the fact that it was all on the same day. And if Indianapolis is someplace that you would like to go visit one day, again, let me know. But we went out there, got to walk around the city, which was really cool. There was a small little hole in the wall Greek restaurant that we got to have lunch at, and they were pretty good. We got to enjoy that. Me and my dad, I mean, we're Greek, so obviously that's going to appeal to us, but our friends seem to enjoy it too. So that was nice. While walking around the city, we actually went into this one ice cream store. I don't remember the name of it, and I don't remember the name of the Greek restaurant either to give them shout outs. Uh, but we went in there, and they had a unique way of making the ice cream. They put it in like a bowl with the ingredients, and then they like froze it. I forgot exactly what the gas was used that did it, but it was they use some sort of gas in it and it freezes it that way and you get the ice cream from that. And I think they may have done a couple other things to it, I can't remember, but anyways, gave it a try. It was really good. I do love ice cream. If you don't know me, I love sweets, absolutely love sweets. That's my downfall. Donuts would be my number one top thing to if I had to rank them. Donuts would be a number one, but a close second would be ice cream, and then pretty much everything else tied for third: cake, cookies, candy, whatever. That's besides the point. So that was pretty good. And so we had a nice little day in Indianapolis before we ended up going to the game. Again, this isn't a podcast about Indianapolis, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it was still a nice little city to visit for a bit, for an afternoon. Came back, I think we dropped off his wife. So it was just me, my dad, my friend Tawan. And we head out to Bloomington, which from there wasn't too far, hour-ish, something like that. Not a bad little drive. We get out there, and we got fortunate the night before when we went to Purdue that we literally just parked right next to the stadium. Didn't see a meter, didn't see anybody there taking money. We just got to park right next to the stadium, walk on up. That's rare. That's a rare feat in itself. But for two nights in a row, we did it again. Not that it was right next to the stadium, but it wasn't far. It was kind of like just like across the street a little bit. I want to say it was maybe some apartments, or they could have been dorms. I don't know. They looked like they were apartments. But we pulled in there. There was cars that were parked on the street, and we found a spot that was empty, parked there, and nobody took any money. There wasn't a parking meter or anything. It was just some parking. So what are the chances that you only get not only one time getting to go to a game and not have to pay for parking, but 2 days in a row, two games in a row? That was pretty incredible for us. Small little victories in life. I enjoyed that. Anyway, so we get out of the car and we start walking up. Like I said, it was kind of across the street, so we're walking towards the stadium. I'm doing my best to take some pictures of the outside as we're coming up to it. And in the previous game that I went before, we had I had bought some of these seat cushions that kind of they're not only cushions, but they kind of uh, in, fold out, whatever you want to call it, and kind of go on it so that you can actually also have a back too. Because many college football stadiums, they just have bench seats. They don't have an actual seat, and so you know you're kind of backless with your seat, which can hurt my back because I'm constantly like leaning forward a little bit. Even now, as I'm doing this podcast, even now, the slight little leaning forward that I've been doing since I started 7 minutes ago. I can feel it in my lower back. And if you're watching my podcast, I'm constantly probably shifting and maneuvering. It's because either my back or my legs will get kind of tight or whatever, and I'm constantly shifting. It's probably annoying to sit next to me. Anywho, so I had those two cushions. Got into Purdue no problem at all. But when we got to Indiana and tried to go inside, they wouldn't let me in with it. Every stadium's a little different as regards what their their policies are, what is allowed and what's not allowed. Some stadiums allow for it, and apparently some stadiums do not. Indiana was one of the ones that did not. So we get up there and we try to bring it in. The guy's like, "Nope, you can't bring it in." Like, really? So I'm like, all right. So kind of annoyed. So I ended up going around. We were in one end zone, I guess you could say. We kind of go around because where we were parked on one of the sides, um, and so walked around. I went to an entrance there, and sure enough, the person there too, they were consistent with it. They wouldn't let me in either. And I got angry with it. Like, come on. I was all annoyed with them. I brought it all the way from Michigan. Can't even use it. I mean, I did get to use it the night before, which was nice, but I wanted to use it that day too. Thankfully, we're not parked too far. I mean, can you imagine if I was parked a mile, 2 miles away and couldn't bring it in, have to go all the way back to the car to put it away? Oh, that would have been awful. Thankfully, I wasn't that far away from it, but it still was inconvenience. And thankfully, we had arrived early enough to the game where I can go back and not have to, miss any of the game. I've been a ticket taker before, and I know that's not an easy thing to do to have to stop somebody or tell them that they can't bring something in and they either have to throw it out or go back to their car, or some might have some kind of bag check or whatever. you know that's not easy, so I get it. Now that it's been a few years, I'm not as annoyed with the guy as I was back then when I was really angry about it, to be in that situation. But it is what it is. I couldn't bring it in, so I had to go all the way back to the car, put it away, and then come all the way back again. Not that it was super far away, but still was a little bit of inconvenience. Going around the stadium, though, it was kind of nice that in addition to taking some of the pictures of the stadium itself, I do try to take a picture of the sign of the stadium, and I did get to see something, so that was nice. And I got to take some outside shots. And we went in, um, and we were there early enough, so we we ended up actually walking around the stadium inside. We did a little bit of walking on the outside, took some pictures on the outside, uh, but when we were inside, we had some time, so we ended up walking around as well. And as we're walking around the stadium, so we're on, I don't remember the direction, but let's just say from where we parked and we were on that sideline, that's where we sat. Um, we're going around. So on the other side of the corner, which is they have a student section over there, you could tell when we were walking around, you could tell we ended up getting in the student section. I mean, there was just a herd of them, a mass. I don't want to say a mass exodus because they weren't leaving, they were entering, but they were walking around too. And it was just all of a sudden we're just in amongst a million students, all with their red and white striped pajamas or overalls or whatever that saw some of those. They're all their Indiana gear, right? They had all that. And I recall them like bumping into us, and I can't remember if they kind of were messing with my friend a little bit. Not a horrible mean way, but just, not being the nicest either. Um, so we were kind of maneuvering around that. Eventually, we did pass that and get kind of back to just normalcy after that. It is a student section. Student sections can be nuts if you're, uh, any big school, any big time school. They can. There's a ton of them, and it's a lot to maneuver through. We did that though, and eventually, we uh, we went back to our seats and waited for the game to start. There was where we were sitting. Um, we were on one of the sidelines, which I always enjoy if I can be a part of it. They had the team come out, obviously do their pregame, and I think we were there for that. They were kind of like waving to the audience, and the audience was waving back. They used to have this rock that I think they used to touch on their way out, of the other tunnel. I don't think that they have that anymore. I think they've relocated that because I don't recall seeing it. Um, but yeah, so we were there. The press box was behind us, not in front of us, as we're looking out to the field. The press box was behind us. And it was a pretty good looking press box, I guess, I don't know, press boxes impress me. No pun intended with that, but they're big. They got a lot of windows, signs on it. Something about it, instead of just having just a bowl, it adds to it, like a topping, like a cake topping or something. It adds to it, makes it look a little bit more impressive. I like looking at press boxes. You know, not that I'm going to stare at them for all eternity, but just to see them, I think they can look kind of cool. Anyways, so the game started. They were playing Illinois, um, and it was an interesting game. That's for sure. Indiana scored first on a field goal to take a 3-0 lead. Illinois, though, did respond by scoring a touchdown. So at the end of the first quarter, it was 7-3. Indiana actually owned the second quarter by scoring a few times, um, but they weren't like all touchdowns. They were a couple field goals and a touchdown. So they were winning, but not winning big at halftime. Illinois kicked the field goal as well. At halftime, it was a lead for Indiana, but not a big lead. It was 16-10. After that, though, Illinois uh, scored a touchdown in the third to take the a 17-16 lead, and then would even kick a field goal late in the game. Now, Indiana couldn't do much in the second half. They kicked a field goal to take a 20-16 lead with only a couple minutes to go in the game, which at that point, again, in the second half, Indiana wasn't doing much. And in fact, aside from the field goals, they had only scored one touchdown. It didn't look too promising for Indiana. However, give Indiana Hoosiers some credit. With only a couple minutes to go, they run 12 plays, cover 75 yards, and score a touchdown with 23 seconds left to go in the game to take a 23-20 lead and end up winning 23-20. Um, so Good for the Hoosiers. They won. Illinois, it kind of felt like that night they were the better team. I feel like they did kind of outplay them a little bit, but you know, Indiana hung tough and ended up getting the victory. So good for the Hoosiers, and they won 23-20 that game. I had a fan that was sitting right next to me. It wasn't a completely full crowd, but there was a fan sitting next to me, or down a ways. He was with somebody else, or he was talking with someone. I wasn't really talking to him. He was just there. But as I could hear his comments, I'm cheering for Indiana for one game. One day, I'll root for him for a day. And he was the way he was talking, you could see like he really loved Indiana. Like that's his school, that's his passion, loves it there, loves the team, wants them to do well. But you could tell he's disappointed because they're not exactly a big dog. And more often than not, they've been, more on the bottom of the Big Ten than necessarily the top of the Big Ten. And you could see his frustration with it. And it was interesting to me, anyways, to be able to hear and see a fan love and be as passionate about Indiana football as maybe I could have been with Michigan football. Now, Michigan has a history. They've had a past where it's steeped in tradition, and they've had national championships, and they've won a lot. Um, so there's a certain amount of pride amongst the Michigan fan base for that. So it's easy to hear from that, but to hear that same passion that I'll hear from a Michigan fan for an Indiana football fan, I thought that was kind of cool. They're out there now. At the time of this recording, which is right now November of 2024. By the time you hear this, by the time it's posted, because I don't always record and post right away. I'll record it, and I've got a few that sit and I continue to add to the library as every week. So I usually, whenever I record it, it comes out a little bit later. Anyways, but by the time of this recording, right now in November of 2024, Indiana is undefeated under their new head coach, which I believe his last name is Signetti. Again, how when you're listening to this, I don't know. They may have lost by now, or this coach may be around still. He may not be around. I don't know how far in the future you're listening to this podcast. But as of right now, they are actually doing very well, being undefeated, have a high-powered offense. They're playing really good football. This is probably one of the best that I've ever seen Indiana be. Back then, not so much. And they've had they've had some good teams and have been a tough out in the past under certain head coaches, Tom Allen being one of them, but never to where I've seen as of right now this season here in 2024. And how the rest of it will play out, I don't know. We'll see. Um, anyway, so back then, Illinois was a tougher team too. They ended up actually having a pretty good year, but that's just that first game. Indiana ended up getting the best of them. And so, good for Indiana the one time that I saw it. And yeah, that was about it for that. As regards to the stadium itself, so like I said, when we came up, I got to take some pictures on the outside. They had um, some what do you call it, blocks? I don't know, like cement work. I don't know, some statues and some cement work with Indiana, their IU, kind of etched into it. I don't I don't care for the IU thing as much. I know they put on their helmet. To me, it looks like a candlestick. I mean, I know it's saying Indiana University, but it looks like a candlestick to me. I remember growing up, they had, I think it was just the words Indiana on it, on their side of their helmets. I kind of like that a little bit better. Not that my opinion matters at all, but I kind of do like that a little bit better. Sometimes they will go back to that, and I appreciate when they do. And I think they even add maybe black in there as well, which kind of looks kind of cool. Anyways, and, the stadium is not the most humongous stadium in the world. About 52,000, I think is their capacity. It wasn't that much. I believe the attendance was around 44,000. Like I said, it wasn't a completely packed stadium when we went. Still a decent amount of crowd, and their student section, which is kind of in that corner that I talked about. They have like an Indiana looking emblem in that area. they they can be pretty loud. Although I kind of yeah, they were pretty loud. Whether or not they stuck around the whole game or not, I don't know. But that does happen with student sections. Um, the students will come for maybe half and be real loud and boisterous, if depending on the game too. Depending on the team, depending on the opponent, it depends on all that. They kind of have like a horseshoe looking stadium. However, they have enclosed one of the end zones with like I don't know the suites or um, I don't know what you want to call it exactly. Maybe it's like a development center, student athletic development center might be that. Anyways, they kind of closed it in with that. And there's a scoreboard there too on that end. And again, so it's not a complete bowl, but it's not a complete horseshoe. It's kind of a little bit mixture of in between. As I mentioned, we had the press box right behind us as well. Um, oh, and right next to the stadium is their basketball stadium as well. I forget the name of their basketball stadium. That's similar to Michigan. Michigan Stadium is right next to Chrysler Center. In fact, we go into Chrysler Center when we check in for our game to work it. So yeah, um, all in all, fun time. I want to say probably the atmosphere at the Purdue game the night before was a little bit more electrifying than this one. Both of them were opening games, for the season. Both of them were Big Ten games. Indiana was playing Illinois, Purdue had played Penn State, so they were both Big Ten games. And it could be just between the two, Purdue might have a little bit more history as regards Indiana. Indiana, as I said, this year has been doing pretty good, and maybe that'll build up. Maybe they'll build up a solid team. During COVID, I know when they had Michael Penix Jr., they had a pretty good year that year too. So it's not like they've had horrible years every single year. But usually Indiana isn't always like the top dog in the Big Ten, and that's just how it is. But they're pretty good, usually in basketball. That's a big thing with them too. Although they have their moments in football too, and it was I enjoy going. I always do. And if it's something you want to go see, as I mentioned, let me know. Be happy to help you with it. You can reach out to me at j.paradise@gmail.com. Maybe you're a student or potential student. You want to go check out the campus, check out a football game. Maybe you like seeing different games. Maybe after hearing this podcast, you're like, yeah, I want to go take a look, see what it's like, enjoy that experience out there. Yeah, and I'll be happy to do that. So yeah, reach out to me. You can email me, or you can look me up on Facebook or Instagram at Jay's Paradise Travels, Jays, no apostrophe, Jay's Paradise Travels, and reach out to me that way. I'll be more than happy to help you either way. I do appreciate you listening to this podcast. Thank you very much. If you did enjoy it, do enjoy my podcast, please let other people know. Share it with others. Subscribe to it. Like it, rate it. All those good stuff that us podcasters need in order to keep our podcast going and build up our audience. And for myself, I'm also building up a travel agency business. Continue want to do that. So please continue to like it, rate it, support it, share it with others. And again, appreciate you tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned something from it. And I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye bye.